Introduction. Epictetus was a Greek Stoic philosopher. He was born into slavery at Hierapolis, Phrygia, and lived in Rome until his banishment, when he went to Nicopolis in northwestern Greece, where he spent the rest of his life. His teachings were written down and published by his pupil Arrian in his Discourses and Enchiridion. Epictetus taught that philosophy is a way of life and not simply a theoretical discipline. To Epictetus, all external events are beyond our control. He argues that we should accept whatever happens calmly and dispassionately. However, individuals are responsible for their own actions, which they can examine and control through rigorous self-discipline. Epictetus was born around AD 50, presumably at Hierapolis, Phrygia. The name his parents gave him is unknown. The word epiktetos in Greek simply means gain or acquired. The Greek philosopher Plato, in his Laws, used the term to mean property that is added to one's hereditary property. He spent his youth in Rome as a slave to Epaphroditus, a wealthy freedman and secretary to Nero. His social position was thus complicated, combining the low status of a slave with the high status of one with a personal connection to imperial power. Early in life, Epictetus acquired a passion for philosophy and, with the permission of his wealthy master, he studied Stoic philosophy under Musonius Rufus. Becoming more educated in this way raised his social status. At some point, he became disabled. Celsus, quoted by Origen, wrote that this was because his leg had been deliberately broken by his master. Simplicius, in contrast, wrote that Epictetus had been disabled from childhood. Roman-era ruins at Nicopolis. Epictetus obtained his freedom sometime after the death of Nero in AD 68, and he began to teach philosophy in Rome. Around AD 93, when the Roman Emperor Domitian banished all philosophers from the city, Epictetus moved to Nicopolis in Epirus, Greece, where he founded a school of philosophy. His most famous pupil, Arrian, studied under him as a young man and claimed to have written his famous discourses based on the notes he took on Epictetus's lectures. Arrian argued that his discourses should be considered comparable to the Socratic literature. Arrian described Epictetus as a powerful speaker who could induce his listener to feel just what Epictetus wanted him to feel. Many eminent figures sought conversations with him. Emperor Hadrian was friendly with him and may have heard him speak at his school in Nicopolis. Epictetus lived a life of great simplicity, with few possessions. He lived alone for a long time, but in his old age, he adopted a French child who otherwise would have been left to die, and raised him with the aid of a woman. It is unclear whether Epictetus and she were married. He died sometime around AD 135. After his death, according to Lucian, his oil lamp was purchased by an admirer for 3,000 drachmae. Chapter 1. Wish events to happen as they do. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus believed that focusing on things you can influence, your actions, responses, words, thoughts, and ultimately your emotions, is the real key to happiness and fulfillment. We cannot change what happens to us, but we can change how we view these events. Epictetus spent his childhood as a Roman slave, and he lived most of his life crippled, on essentially one leg. This philosopher had a unique view on what it was to persevere and weather the storm of misfortune, and still come out with a bright view of life. In addition to Epictetus, another Stoic thinker whose ideas can help us today is Marcus Aurelius, the renowned philosopher king himself. He states his life philosophy in a nutshell: everything that happens is either endurable or not. If it's endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining. If it's unendurable, then stop complaining. Your destruction will mean its end as well. Just remember, you can endure anything your mind can make endurable by treating it as in your interest to do so. In your interest or in your nature, Aurelius saw life as a giant neutral. Events will occur, happy and sad, but in reality their value comes from how we choose to feel about them. Emotions, which ultimately determine our mood and satisfaction, come entirely from within and are a matter of our choosing. We only suffer as much as we allow ourselves to. Amor fati, accepting all of the above. Much of Stoic philosophy, then, is about how to train ourselves to detach from our negative emotions and deal with the uncertainty of a lack of control. One specific tenet is amor fati, or the loving acceptance of one's fate. This discipline is summed up in a passage from Epictetus's The Enchiridion. Seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish events to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly and serenely. Stoics are not passive doormats with no ambitions who allow life to happen to them. They simply accept what comes and think ahead to the next step in the most positive way possible. For instance, Marcus Aurelius, despite encountering a devastating plague and countless misfortunes beyond his control, led his weakened army repeatedly into battle to defend Rome against invading barbarian hordes. He prevailed despite the many obstacles to victory. If he'd failed, Rome would have been destroyed. As we'll see, the discipline of action explains this strange paradox. How can the Stoics combine acceptance with such famous endurance and courageous action? In amor fati, you must embrace everything that has happened to you, as well as what will happen in the future. All events leading up to this moment were necessary precursors to the exact world you're standing in. Suppose something happened we wish had not. Which is easier to change, our opinion and level of emotional impact, or the event itself? The answer is obvious. The event lies in the past and cannot be changed. No matter how much you prepared, it still happened, but the way you view it can easily change. We do this by embracing amor fati. When we stop fighting reality, we can preserve our energy for future endeavors rather than remaining stuck in the past. The Stoics used the metaphor of a dog leash to a moving cart. The dog can walk along with the cart despite having no control and still enjoy his walk and surroundings, or he can resist the cart with all of his might and be dragged for miles. It's our choice every single day whether we choose to be the dog that accepts his fate or be dragged. If we are dragged, we end up in the same destination, but have a dramatically poorer experience. If we can simply walk with the cart, we will be able to find the positive in that path. We must carefully distinguish between what is within our own power and what is not. Up to us are our voluntary choices, namely our actions and judgments, while everything else is not under our control. This means that, right off the bat, you must accept that you have no control over 90% of your worries and concerns. No matter what you do or how virtuous you are, you cannot affect the outcome. So why keep your concerns dangling in your mind? We only have ownership of our own actions and thoughts, and we have no choice but to accept the outcome. From our end, we can ensure that we are doing our best and putting our entire effort into something, but if we have done everything within our power, that's where our control really ends. So the key lesson to take away here is to focus our attention and efforts where we actually have control, and then let the universe take care of the rest. The Stoics used the archer analogy to explain what to stop wasting your time on. An archer is trying to hit a target. He has done his best to prepare for this moment. He has practiced and trained, carefully selected his bow and arrow, and is in a state of intense mental focus. He can control each and every moment, right up until he looses the arrow. And then, whether or not he hits the target is not up to him. As the arrow takes flight, any number of things could happen, some predictable and some not. He could simply have not prepared very well and have poor aim. But a gust of wind could also disrupt the arrow's path. A bird could fly into the arrow's path, or the target itself could be jolted. Another person might also shoot the target first or sabotage the archer. None of this reflects on the archer himself. He did his best and left the rest to the flow of nature. This is all we can ever do, so the outcomes we receive should be equally accepted. Amor fati, impression versus reality. In addition to the radical acceptance of fate, Stoic philosophers also emphasize the importance of distinguishing between your impressions, your thoughts, emotions, and perceptions of what you can control, and the reality of the situation. Epictetus stated, "So make a practice at once of saying to every strong impression, an impression is all you are, not the source of the impression. Then test and assess it with your criteria, but one primarily ask, is this something that is or is not in my control? And if it's not one of the things that you control, be ready with the reaction, then it's none of my concern. Check your impressions and ask yourself whether it's up to you or not. If it's up to you, then do something about it. If not, take it as it is. It was already written in stone before you got there, and it will be written in stone after you leave. Nothing you could have done would make a difference. Picture someone who prefers chocolate ice cream, but you serve them vanilla ice cream. You may have slaved over the vanilla ice cream, but that simply doesn't matter. It was never up to you. Despite your efforts and planning, there's nothing left to do but move forward. Think of your day and think of the things you have complete control of, things you have some control of, and things you have no control of. You should eventually come to the realization that the only thing you have complete command of is yourself. The only thing we control entirely is ourself, our will, and our intentions. You can't control whether the sun will come out tomorrow. You can plan for it. But why worry about it? Focus on your own actions and improve them as you can. Give yourself the best opportunity for success and the outcome you want. But in the end, a hurricane could come and destroy everything. So why worry? Stoicism is a life philosophy that anticipates hardships. When good things happen to us, it's easy to feel strong and resilient, but it's only when we face hardship that we shape the narrative of our lives. Just like our emotions, the way we view our lives comes exclusively from us internally and doesn't have any true correlation with the reality that we live in. Chapter 2. Written in stone, the Stoic philosopher Epictetus believed that focusing on things you can influence, your actions, responses, words, thoughts, and ultimately your emotions, is the real key to happiness and fulfillment. We cannot change what happens to us, but we can change how we view these events. Epictetus spent his childhood as a Roman slave, and he lived most of his life crippled, on essentially one leg. This philosopher had a unique view on what it was to persevere and weather the storm of misfortune and still come out with a bright view of life. In addition to Epictetus, another Stoic thinker whose ideas can help us today is Marcus Aurelius, the renowned philosopher king himself. He states his life philosophy in a nutshell: everything that happens is either endurable or not. If it's endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining. If it's then unendurable, stop complaining. Your destruction will mean its end as well. Just remember, you can endure anything your mind can make endurable by treating it as in your interest to do so. In your interest or in your nature, Aurelius saw life as a giant neutral. Events will occur, happy and sad, but in reality their value comes from how we choose to feel about them. Emotions, which ultimately determine our mood and satisfaction, come entirely from within and are a matter of our choosing. We only suffer as much as we allow ourselves to. Amor fati, accepting all of the above, Much of Stoic philosophy, then, is about how to train ourselves to detach from our negative emotions and deal with the uncertainty of a lack of control. One specific tenet is amor fati, or the loving acceptance of one's fate. This discipline is summed up in a passage from Epictetus's The Enchiridion. Seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish events to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly and serenely. Stoics are not passive doormats with no ambitions who allow life to happen to them. They simply accept what comes and think ahead to the next step in the most positive way possible. For instance, Marcus Aurelius, despite encountering a devastating plague and countless misfortunes beyond his control, led his weakened army repeatedly into battle to defend Rome against invading barbarian horde. He prevailed despite the many obstacles to victory. If he'd failed, Rome would have been destroyed. As we'll see, the discipline of action explains this strange paradox. How can the Stoics combine acceptance with such famous endurance and courageous action? In amor fati, you must embrace everything that has happened to you, as well as what will happen in the future. All events leading up to this moment were necessary precursors to the exact world you're standing in. Suppose something happened we wish had not. Which is easier to change, our opinion and level of emotional impact, or the event itself? The answer is obvious. The event lies in the past and cannot be changed. No matter how much you prepared, it still happened, but the way you view it can easily change. We do this by embracing amor fati. When we stop fighting reality, we can preserve our energy for future endeavors rather than remaining stuck in the past. The Stoics use the metaphor of a dog leash to a moving cart. The dog can walk along with the cart despite having no control and still enjoy his walk and surroundings, or he can resist the cart with all of his might and be dragged for miles. It's our choice every single day whether we choose to be the dog that accepts his fate or be dragged. If we are dragged, we end up in the same destination, but have a dramatically poorer experience. If we can simply walk with the cart, we will be able to find the positive in that path. We must carefully distinguish between what is within our own power and what is not. Up to us are our voluntary choices, namely our actions and judgments, while everything else is not under our control. This means that right off the bat, you must accept that you have no control over 90% of your worries and concerns. No matter what you do or how virtuous you are, you cannot affect the outcome. So why keep your concerns dangling in your mind? We only have ownership of our own actions and thoughts, and we have no choice but to accept the outcome. From our end, we can ensure that we are doing our best and putting our entire effort into something, but if we have done everything within our power, that's where our control really ends. So the key lesson to take away here is to focus our attention and efforts where we actually have control, and then let the universe take care of the rest. The Stoics use the archer analogy to explain what to stop wasting your time on. An archer is trying to hit a target. He has done his best to prepare for this moment. He has practiced and trained, carefully selected his bow and arrow, and is in a state of intense mental focus. He can control each and every moment, right up until he looses the arrow. And then, whether or not he hits the target is not up to him. As the arrow takes flight, any number of things could happen, some predictable and some not. He could simply have not prepared very well and have poor aim. But a gust of wind could also disrupt the arrow's path. A bird could fly into the arrow's path, or the target itself could be jolted. Another person might also shoot the target first or sabotage the archer. None of this reflects on the archer himself. He did his best and left the rest to the flow of nature. This is all we can ever do, so the outcomes we receive should be equally accepted. Amor fati, impression versus reality. In addition to the radical acceptance of fate, the Stoic philosophers also emphasize the importance of distinguishing between your impressions, your thoughts, emotions, and perceptions of what you can control, and the reality of the situation. Epictetus stated, "So make a practice at once of saying to every strong impression, an impression is all you are, not the source of the impression. Then test and assess it with your criteria, but one primarily asked, is this something that is or is not in my control? And if it's not one of the things that you control, be ready with the reaction, then it's none of my concern. Check your impressions and ask yourself whether it's up to you or not. If it's up to you, then do something about it. If not, take it as it is. It was already written in stone before you got there, and it will be written in stone after you leave. Nothing you could have done would make a difference. Picture someone who prefers chocolate ice cream, but you serve them vanilla ice cream. You may have slaved over the vanilla ice cream, but that simply doesn't matter. It was never up to you. Despite your efforts and planning, there is nothing left to do but move forward. Think of your day and think of the things you have complete control of, things you have some control of, and things you have no control of. You should eventually come to the realization that the only thing you have complete command of is yourself. The only thing we control entirely is ourself, our will, and our intentions. You can't control whether the sun will come out tomorrow. You can plan for it, but why worry about it? Focus on your own actions and improve them as you can. Give yourself the best opportunity for success and the outcome you want. But in the end, a hurricane could come and destroy everything. So why worry? Stoicism is a life philosophy that anticipates hardships. When good things happen to us, it's easy to feel strong and resilient. But it's only when we face hardship that we shape the narrative of our lives. Just like our emotions, the way we view our lives comes exclusively from us internally and doesn't have any true correlation with the reality that we live in. Chapter 3. Embracing Discomfort. Despite the name, Stoicism is not a life philosophy about ignoring your emotions and keeping up the appearance of being unaffected in the face of hardship. The Stoics are often construed as cold, stone-like figures, but this is a misconception. In actuality, the Stoics had the full range of emotion that we all do, but they chose to focus on positive ones and let negative ones run their course. The basic aim of Stoicism is to live in accordance with the flow of nature. Nature is unstoppable as well as unpredictable. We can't predict the future, and we can't prepare for every foreseeable outcome. Yet we must adapt and react to whatever comes our way somehow. We must still persist. We must thrive even in the face of hardship. How is that possible? Most of the Western world in antiquity once was ruled by a Stoic, the eponymous Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome from 161–180 AD, who was often referred to as the philosopher king for his writings. Most of our conception of modern Stoicism comes from his diary, later turned into a book, Meditations. Stoicism is not a religion, though at times it bears striking resemblances to some Taoism, for instance, which you'll read about next. But that's only because the end goals are the same, and, as it turns out, there are only so many ways to peace, fulfillment, and harmony. Stoicism, however, is a direct system of thoughts for living better. That is the sole purpose, and it is unencumbered by having to pay tribute to a deity or set of spiritual beliefs. Stoicism is a way of living that places your fate into your own two hands. Above all, Stoicism teaches the path of mental control to living a good life. Perhaps ironically, this is done in large part by recognizing that we have control over very little in our lives except for our thoughts themselves. When we let go of the fantasy that we can control life, we can better deal with whatever comes our way. Stoicism, as you might guess, with a reference to Marcus Aurelius, was born in ancient Greece. The term Stoic comes from the Greek word stoipoikil, or painted porch, which refers to the public space in Athens where teachers and students regularly met and pontificated on life. The Stoa was, in many ways, the center of Greek life. In the midst of this intellectual outburst, sometime around 300 BC, the man now considered the father of Stoicism first made a name for himself. This was Zeno. Zeno's philosophy can be described simply enough. Happiness comes as a result of living in accordance with nature's flow. From Zeno's origination of Stoicism, the next notable Stoic was Epictetus, who is credited with the wisdom behind the Enchiridion, a handbook of thoughts on Stoicism. It begins in a compelling manner. Some things are in our control and others not. Accepting that truth launches you on the way to being a Stoic. Epictetus is where things really started to take on the modern form we know today. He went on to state, there is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will. Among the most fundamental tenets of Stoicism is the idea that we should attempt to control our lives. Investing emotional energy into things we cannot change or control, similar to Buddhism's avoidance of attachment, is what causes unhappiness, not the actual negative event or outcome itself. He believed that focusing on things you can influence, your actions, responses, words, thoughts, and emotions, eventually, were the real keys to happiness and fulfillment. We cannot change what happens to us, but we can change how we view them. Epictetus spent his childhood as a Roman slave, and he lived most of his life on essentially one leg. He may have had a unique view on what it was to persevere and weather the storm of misfortune and still come out with a bright view of life. Along the way in Stoic history, we also meet Seneca, whose personal letters remain instructive to this day. Finally, we shift to Marcus Aurelius, a renowned philosopher king himself. This is his life philosophy in a nutshell. Everything that happens is either endurable or not. If it's endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining. If it's unendurable, your destruction will mean its end as well. Just remember, you can endure anything your mind can make endurable by treating it as in your interest to do so. In your interest or in your nature, Aurelius saw life as a giant neutral. Events will occur, happy and sad, but in reality, all events become how we choose to feel about them. Emotions, which ultimately determine our mood and satisfaction, come entirely from within and are a matter of our choosing. We only suffer as much as we allow ourselves to. Accepting all of the above, much of Stoic philosophy then is about how to train ourselves to detach from our negative emotions and deal with the uncertainty of a lack of control. This is mentioned in the first of the three Stoic disciplines. The three Stoic disciplines. The principles upon which Stoicism was founded have shifted dramatically due to different schools of thought and a gap of centuries between the most prominent practitioners and the founder. Zeno. Originally, Stoicism placed emphasis on the principles of ethics, physics, and logic, but today's understanding of Stoicism focuses more on Epictetus's three principles. The discipline of desire, which has to do with acceptance of our fate. The discipline of action, which has to do with philanthropy or love of mankind. The discipline of assent, which has to do with mindfulness of our judgments. Marcus Aurelius was taught by philosophers who possibly studied with Epictetus, although he never met him himself. One of the emperor's teachers introduced him to Epictetus's writings, and, from that point, he was powerfully influenced by Epictetus. He also makes extensive mention of the three disciplines, which are important to understanding what informs his own writings. The discipline of desire. This entails having an attitude of acceptance toward what comes our way. In a sense, it is similar to fatalism and being resigned to the gates. What happens is necessary for your growth and will help you in the long run. Today we call the goal of this discipline amor fati, or the loving acceptance of one's fate. This discipline is summed up in a passage from the Enchiridion: seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish events to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly and serenely. But Stoics are not passive doormats with no ambitions and who allow life to happen to them. They simply accept what comes and think ahead to the next step in the best way possible. For instance, Marcus Aurelius, despite a devastating plague and countless misfortunes beyond his control, led his weakened army repeatedly into battle to defend Rome against invading barbarian hordes. He prevailed despite the many obstacles to victory. If he'd failed, Rome would have been destroyed. As we'll see, the discipline of action explains this strange paradox. How can the Stoics combine acceptance with such famous endurance and courageous action? In amor fati, you must embrace everything that has happened to you, as well as what will happen in the future. All events leading up to this moment were necessary precursors to the exact world you're standing in. Suppose something happened we wish had not. Which is easier to change, our opinion and level of emotional impact, or the event itself? The answer is obvious. The event lies in the past and cannot be changed. No matter how much you prepared, it still happened, but the way you view it can easily change. We do this by embracing amor fati. Stop fighting what reality is, rather than resisting, based on fantasy, that which did not happen. That's what happens when we can only, and sometimes even barely, control our actions in a volatile and unpredictable world. The Stoics use the metaphor of a dog leashed to a moving cart. The dog can walk along with the cart despite having no control and still enjoy his walk and surroundings, or he can resist the cart with all of his might and be dragged for miles. It's our choice every single day whether we choose to be the dog that accepts his fate or be dragged. If we are dragged, we end up in the same destination, but have a dramatically poorer experience. If we can simply walk with the cart, we will be able to find the positive in that path. The discipline of action. The discipline of action is living in harmony with the community of all mankind, which means benevolently wishing all of mankind to flourish and achieve happiness. No matter how malicious or deceptive they may be toward you, you must turn the other cheek, remain unaffected, and wish them well. We cannot control others, but we are always in control of our own actions and responses. We always have the choice to act virtuously to help others reach happiness. It is similar to amor fati, because our most frequent sources of unhappiness and tension will most likely be other people, yet we have to embrace their actions and words. If someone is angry, we do not need to react in kind with anger or feel offended. We can choose to accept their anger, let it not impact us, and be reminded that it is meant to be instructive to our own happiness. In other words, Stoics do their best to act with virtue while accepting the actions of others in a somewhat detached manner, whether pleasant or not. We should not let mere words hold such power over us. The discipline of assent. The discipline of assent involves paying attention to our inner workings. We must be mindful enough to know what we are thinking. This is key to controlling your thoughts and emotion. There must be a measure of objectivity, otherwise you are lying to yourself and being overly impacted by your emotions. Stoics are primarily interested in monitoring their judgments of good and bad. These simple judgments have the ability to influence our entire worldview. We may realize that we are viewing external events and the actions of people as negative or bad, but this is to ignore the fact that they are negative purely because we label them as such. This is unnecessary. Recall that emotions are a purely internal creation. The discipline of assent is the practice of catching yourself in this act of creating negative narratives around your life and quite literally changing your worldview. In fact, nothing needs to be bad, negative, or unfortunate. This is a choice of judgment and labeling. Not everything needs to be transformed into a positive that makes you sing, yet certainly nothing needs to have the power to ruin your day. So what do we get when we combine these three Stoic disciplines of acceptance, philanthropy, and mindfulness? We create a life philosophy that preaches introspection and self-awareness to remain calm and rational, no matter the circumstances, even to those who would seek to maliciously hurt you. Focus only on what you can control, your emotions and actions, and let everything else play out as it will. This is a recipe for moving through life by rolling with the punches and coming back even stronger, turning the obstacle upside down. If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it, and it is in your power to wipe out this judgment now. A Marcus Aurelius' key to Stoicism is plain and simple perception. Consider that two people can view a horrific car accident in different ways. One person can see it as a chance for a new car, while the other might only focus on the damage itself and assignment of guilt. Perception is how we decide what events mean to us. Our perceptions can be like a lead ball chained to our feet, holding us back and making us weak. Or they can be a great source of strength, like a magical elixir. How we see the world around us and how we interpret what happens to us makes a massive difference in how we get to live our lives. What we already learned from the Stoics is that they see external events not as good or bad, but as indifferent. So it's not these events, because they are ultimately indifferent, but your own judgment of these events that matters. This makes you responsible for your life. You don't control external events, but you control how you choose to look at them and then respond to them. And in the end, that's all that matters. As the famous Stoic turn of phrase says, you can turn an obstacle upside down. This means to look at even a negative occurrence as something that will ultimately benefit you later on or as a learning moment. We are disturbed or delighted not by events, but only by our judgment and perception of those events. What the Stoics tried to do was not get carried away by their initial impression about external events. Something happens, and we automatically get an impression about it. We can't do much about that. This is our emotional reaction, but it does not have to be our overall response. So look at what happens objectively and dispassionately. It might be raining, and then choose your best reaction. The world won't end, and the activities you had planned for outdoors can be done another day. How might the rain force you to get creative or explore other untapped potential? What are the alternate perspectives you can adopt, rather than one of sadness or frustration? These alternate perspectives always exist, and you should train your ability to see them. The truth is that you always have the ability to respond in a way that amounts to rolling with the punches. How might this obstacle become an opportunity? If only an opportunity to practice your sense of resiliency and patience, training non-reaction. It's not so simple as flipping a switch to turn the obstacle upside down and realize that your emotions are coming from entirely within you and under your control. To be frank, most of our lives are too cushioned and comfortable for that to ever occur naturally. We have too many expectations and entitlements, and some of them are even justified. So what then? The Stoics argued that if all we know is comfort, then we would be fragile and brittle and forced to inevitably experience pain or discomfort. By periodically practicing discomfort, we adapt and become stronger for those situations. We are able to understand that pain and discomfort are not things to be feared so much. This makes us emotionally more even-keeled. Growth only occurs to those who are able to mentally and physically withstand discomfort. Stoicism might be the first philosophy to preach the maxim of no pain, no gain. Stoics were not masochists or anti-pleasure. They still enjoyed the fruits of life, but they recognized that proper perspective is needed to be non-reactive and also appreciate the good things. Seneca puts it best: set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, "Is this the condition that I feared?" It is precisely in times of immunity from care that the soul should toughen itself beforehand for occasions of greater stress, and it is while fortune is kind that it should fortify itself against her violence. In days of peace the soldier performs maneuvers, throws up earthworks with no enemy in sight, and wearies himself by gratuitous toil, in order that he may be equal to unavoidable toil. If you would not have a man flinch when the crisis comes, train him before it comes. To have a chance of keeping it together in the face of adversity, you must practice. Toughen up before you need to, and you'll be prepared for anything. Seneca suggested living as a pauper for a period of time. Wear old, unflattering clothes, eat sparsely and only plain food, and even attempt to sleep on the floor. There are various degrees to try this. You can go for a week with only simple food such as bread and soup. You can spend a month on a tight daily budget. Maybe you want to drink only water for a couple of days. Training your discomfort muscle makes you view hardship in a different light. Been there, done that? What's the big deal? This allows you to detach from the circumstances and move on more quickly. You'll gain the confidence in yourself that you can handle adversity and also appreciate what you have in a powerful way. These perspectives make it difficult to overly react to negative situations. Seneca reminds us, it is precisely in times of immunity from care that the soul should toughen itself beforehand for occasions of greater stress. If you would not have a man flinch when the crisis comes, train him before it comes. Instead of putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, you can also purposefully say no to pleasurable situations. None of this makes life harder. In fact, it makes it easier. By undertaking acts of discomfort, you harden yourself against future misfortunes. If you only know comfort, then you might be traumatized when you are forced to experience pain or any other sort of discomfort in the future, as you surely will eventually. Optimally, you'll be immune to discomfort. Take away some comfort from your life, and it'll remind you of how comfortable and happy your life actually is. By purposefully foregoing some of our pleasures and comforts, we can create a greater sense of gratitude. Voluntary discomfort lets us enjoy more of what we already have, and maybe it takes away some of our cravings for more. Another way of training your non-reactivity and sense of gratitude is to practice negative visualization. Stoics recommended to periodically spend time imagining that we have lost the things we value most. Imagine you have lost your family, your health, or your job, whatever you place a high value upon. Deliberately reflect on each value as if it has disappeared. Think about what you would be missing and how that would impact your daily life. Think about the despair you would feel. Negative visualization is a powerful counter to human desire. Suddenly you'll be forced to realize that you already have what makes you happy beyond measure. You will realize and appreciate what you have in your life, and you will also find that the desire for more has completely halted. When you spend time deliberately realizing that everything you love and cherish could be taken from you tomorrow by some sick twist of fate, you feel humbled. You realize how many gifts and blessings you truly have. You see the real worth of everything surrounding you. This is a difficult state of mind in which to be consumed with desire and worry. Focusing on what you can control, remember the first line of Epictetus's Enchiridion: make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. Some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us. This is deemed the Stoic circle of control. We must carefully distinguish between what is within our own power and what is not. Up to us are our voluntary choices, namely our actions and judgments, while everything else is not under our control. This means that right off the bat, you must accept that you have no control over 90 of your worries and concerns. No matter what you do or how virtuous you are, you cannot affect the outcome. So why keep your concerns dangling in your mind? We only control our own actions and thoughts, and we have no choice but to accept the outcome. From our end, we can ensure that we are doing our best and putting our entire effort into something, but if we have done everything within our power, that's where our control really ends. The things that are up to you, your thoughts and your actions, are the most important things in life. The most appealing aspect of Stoicism is that we are responsible for our flourishing because all that truly matters in life is up to us. So the key lesson to take away here is to focus our attention and efforts where we actually have control, and then let the universe take care of the rest. This turns out to be a very small subset of actions and thoughts, which is comforting in itself. Where a to-do list was once 10 items, you will find that it can easily be shaved down to 3 items. The Stoics use the archer analogy to explain what to stop wasting your time on. An archer is trying to hit a target. He has done his best to prepare for this moment. He has practiced and trained, carefully selected his bow and arrow, and is in a state of intense mental focus. He can control each and every moment, right up until he looses the arrow. And then, whether or not he hits the target is not up to him. As the arrow takes flight, any number of things could happen, some predictable and some not. He could simply have not prepared very well and have poor aim. But a gust of wind could also disrupt the arrow's path. A bird could fly into the arrow's path, or the target itself could be jolted. Another person might also shoot the target first or sabotage the archer. None of this reflects on the archer himself. He did his best and left the rest to the flow of nature. This is all we can ever do, so the outcomes we get should be equally accepted. Amor fati, Epictetus went on to state, so make a practice at once of saying to every strong impression, an impression is all you are, not the source of the impression. Then test and assess it with your criteria, but one primarily ask, is this something that is or is not in my control? And if it's not one of the things that you control, be ready with the reaction, then it's none of my concern. Check your impressions and ask yourself whether it's up to you or not. If it's up to you, then do something about it. If not, take it as it is. It was already written in stone before you got there, and it will be written in stone after you leave. Nothing you could have done would make a difference. Picture someone who prefers chocolate ice cream, but you serve them vanilla ice cream. You may have slaved over the vanilla ice cream, but that simply doesn't matter. It was never up to you, despite your efforts and planning. There's nothing left to do but move forward. Think of your day and think of the things you have complete control of, things you have some control of, and the things you have no control of. You should eventually come to the realization that the only thing you have complete control of is yourself. The only thing we control entirely is ourself, our will, and our intentions. You can't control if the sun will come out tomorrow. You can plan for it, but why worry about it? Focus on your own actions and improve them as you can. Give yourself the best opportunity for success and the outcome you want. But in the end, a hurricane could come and destroy everything. So why worry? Stoicism is a life philosophy that anticipates hardship. When good things happen to us, it's easy to feel strong and resilient, but it's only when we face hardship that we shape the narrative of our lives. Just like our emotions, The way we view our lives comes exclusively from us internally and doesn't really have any correlation with the reality that we live in. Yay! Chapter 4. What are you really afraid of? Man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems. Epictetus. Picture this: a serene lake surrounded by lush greenery, reflecting the clear blue sky above. You sit by the water's edge, basking in the tranquility of the moment. Yet amidst this peaceful scene, your mind starts to wander. Suddenly you're engulfed by thoughts of potential job loss, strained relationships, and uncertain futures. These are what Epictetus calls imagined anxieties. You are in heaven, but your mind makes you think you are in hell, questioning unbounded fears. Fear has a function. Your ancestors used it to help identify and flee from genuine threats to their survival. For example, the quintessential saber-toothed beast rustling in the grass. Your body doesn't know the difference between a thing and a thought about a thing. However, fast forward to modern-day life. You could be sitting quietly in an armchair, and when you read about a fictional saber-toothed beast, you experience the exact same physiological reaction as your ancient ancestors did, except it's not real. Older man's ability to think and imagine, then, is also an ability to terrify himself for no good reason. Take, for instance, the job interview you're anticipating next week. Your mind concocts a narrative of stumbling over your words, being rejected, and facing a bleak future. Yet, in reality, the interview is still in the future, and your current anxiety serves only to cloud your present moments. Or consider the social event you're dreading. You fear awkward conversations and judgment. But aren't you projecting yourself into a future that may not align with what truly transpires? By questioning the basis of these imagined anxieties, we can unravel their grip on us. Ask yourself, what evidence do I have that this feared outcome will happen? Is there another, more balanced perspective I could adopt? Big question is, am I reacting to this situation, or my thoughts about this situation? Asking this means you're free to wonder if there may be a more useful way to think about things. Embracing present action. Sometimes we also find ourselves entangled in the rhythm of anticipation, yearning for a future that sparkles with our dreams. Yet in our fervent fixation on the horizon, we risk missing the enchantment of the steps we take today. Epictetus's words hold a mirror to our restless minds, revealing that our true struggles lie not in the tangible challenges that confront us, but in the mirage of anxieties we weave around them. Imagine the aspiring writer who dreams of penning a bestseller. Every keystroke carries the weight of imagined expectations, reviews, accolades, and the shimmering allure of fame. In this future-focused trance, the writer overlooks the beauty of each word crafted, the stories woven, and the lessons learned in the process. They also overlook how boring the writing process can be on some days, and so when their writing journey is less than exceptional, they lose motivation and quit. Epictetus's wisdom echoes here, urging us to draw our gaze away from the alluring horizon and anchor it firmly in the nurturing soil of the present moment. By pouring our passion into each chapter and savoring the creative journey, we nurture not only our craft, but also the fulfillment that comes from simply doing our best. We embed ourselves in the only place we can actually take action, the present. The same holds true in the sphere of personal growth. We yearn to transform, to become the best versions of ourselves. But this very focus could have us failing to engage meaningfully with our imperfect, present selves and all the hard work we have to put into life in the here and now. Usually, when we ruminate, our minds are in the past or in the future, worried about what has already happened or stewing over what might happen, but hasn't actually happened and may never happen. Both of these positions are inherently disempowering. Anxiety that is projected into the past or future can grow unchecked to any size and take on any outlandish shape. It's only when we pull our thoughts back to the present moment that our problem becomes smaller, more realistic and actionable. Take a look at the following thoughts. I've gone for 5 interviews so far and never gotten the job. I'm never going to get one. I'm doomed. Everything is stacked against me. And I'm such a loser. How am I going to get out of this mess? BB, I can't change yesterday. Things are challenging, but I have some resources available to me, and I'm doing my best. I found a job before, and I'll figure out a way to find one again. Now what can I do today, right now, to make that easier? I know it's scary, but I just have to identify the next step. Which thought makes you feel better? Which feels not only kinder but more realistic? Perhaps most importantly, which thought is likely to inspire meaningful, practical action that will genuinely help solve your problem? Chapter 5. Dichotomy of control. Some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. Epictetus. The dichotomy of control is a central concept in Stoic philosophy that emphasizes the importance of distinguishing between things that are within one's control and things that are beyond one's control. According to this doctrine, people should focus their efforts on the things that are under their control and accept the things that are not. To illustrate this concept, consider a student who is preparing for an exam. The student has control over certain things, such as their study habits, their level of focus, and their time management. However, they do not have control over the difficulty level of the exam, the questions that will be asked, or the grading criteria. By focusing on the things that are within their control, the student can develop a study plan, manage their time effectively, and maintain their focus. However, if they spend too much time worrying about the things that are beyond their control, such as the exam's difficulty level, they may become anxious and stressed, which can negatively affect their performance. Another example of the dichotomy of control can be seen in relationships. In a romantic relationship, one partner cannot control the other's thoughts or feelings. However, they can control their own actions and reactions in response to their partner. By focusing on their own behavior and communication, they can contribute to a healthy relationship. Conversely, if they spend too much energy trying to change their partner's behavior or worrying about things they cannot control, it may create conflict and damage the relationship. Consider John. He is a man of extreme order and control. He has always been that way. Even as a child, every detail in his life has to be perfect, from the way he keeps his house to the way he runs his business and his relationships. It all just seems so natural for him. Controlling everything around him is like second nature. But then one day something changes. John meets someone who challenges his perception of control and freedom, a woman named Olivia. She's wild and carefree, living by her own rules rather than following anyone else's orders or schedules. Somehow she just gets under John's skin in an irresistible way. It feels like she can see right through him and knows exactly how to push all the right buttons to make him question things about himself he never thought twice about before meeting her. The more they hang out together, the more their differences begin to blur until eventually they find themselves at an impasse. Either John accepts Olivia's brand of chaos into his tightly controlled world, or he risks losing her altogether if he tries too hard to keep her within its boundaries. There doesn't seem any other option available anymore but this dichotomy between having total control over everything or giving up some of that power for true happiness with another person as well as himself. In the end, after much soul-searching and maybe a few arguments too, John comes out on top with the newfound understanding that sometimes letting go can be just what one needs in order for their life, and those around them, to thrive. John knows that holding too tightly onto the past and ruminating over what-ifs will only serve to hold him back in life. Therefore he consciously decides to let go of the things he has no control over, major life events, circumstances, feelings, individuality, and chooses to focus on things he can control, such as being present, accepting, empathetic, and loyal. The dichotomy of control helps him focus his efforts on the things that truly matter and accept the things that are beyond his control. It encourages him to take responsibility for his actions and reactions, rather than blaming external circumstances or other people for his problems. Epictetus was a prominent Stoic philosopher who emphasized the importance of living in accordance with reason, virtue, and the natural order of the universe. In his teachings, he often stressed the importance of focusing on what is within one's control and letting go of what is outside of it. Its advice may seem paradoxical at first, but it reflects the Stoic view of the world and an individual's place in it. According to Stoic philosophy, the universe is governed by a rational and benevolent force called the Logos, which is responsible for creating and maintaining the order and harmony of the cosmos. The Logos ensures that everything happens for a reason and that there is a purpose behind all events, even if people don't always understand it. This belief in divine providence and the rationality of the universe is what allows the Stoics to be confident about things they can't control. At the same time, the Stoics recognize that there are things people can control, such as their thoughts, emotions, and actions. It is in these areas that people should focus their attention and efforts. By cultivating the right mindset and living in accordance with reason and virtue, people can achieve inner peace, freedom, and a good life, regardless of external circumstances. One of the most important gifts that nature has given humans, according to the Stoics, is the ability to reason. Unlike animals, people have the power to reflect on their thoughts, emotions, and actions, and to choose how they want to live their lives. This ability to reason is what makes them human, and gives them the potential for greatness. Epictetus' advice to be confident about things people can't change and careful about things they can change reflects the Stoic worldview and their emphasis on living in accordance with reason, virtue, and the natural order of the universe. By focusing on what is within one's control and cultivating the right mindset, people can achieve inner peace, freedom, and a good life, regardless of external circumstances. Epictetus believed in the importance of using the three faculties of the mind wisely. Specifically, he outlined the dichotomy of control, which highlights these faculties as essential to one's well-being. The faculty of judgment governs the way people think, feel, and believe. The faculty of desire guides one's desires and fears. The faculty of will directs one's intentions, decisions, and actions. Using these faculties in proper balance can allow people to live a fulfilling and virtuous life. Epictetus' teachings are a reminder that people have the power to shape their own experiences and must take responsibility for their thoughts and actions in order to live a happy and meaningful life. The wise use of these faculties, he argued, was the key to living a good life. The faculty of judgment is responsible for one's thoughts, emotions, and beliefs. It allows people to make judgments about what is true and false, good and bad, and right and wrong. Epictetus believed that people should use this faculty to develop accurate and rational beliefs about the world. They should strive to avoid making judgments based on emotions, biases, or prejudices. For example, imagine that a person receives criticism from their boss. That their initial emotional response might be to feel angry or defensive. However, using their faculty of judgment, they can reflect on the situation and try to understand the criticism objectively. This can help them make a rational decision about how to respond. The faculty of desire is responsible for one's desires and fears. It allows them to seek pleasure and avoid pain. Epictetus believed that people should use this faculty to develop rational desires and to avoid irrational fears. We should strive to desire only those things within one's control and to avoid fearing things that are not. For example, imagine that an individual desires a promotion at work. This is a rational desire, as it is something within their control. However, if they fear losing their job, this is an irrational fear, as it is not within their control. By using their faculty of desire wisely, they can focus on achieving their goals without being held back by irrational fears. The faculty of will is responsible for one's intentions, decisions, and actions. It allows people to act on their desires and to make decisions about how to live their lives. Epictetus believed that people should use this faculty to make wise decisions and to take responsible actions. People should strive to act in accordance with their rational desires and to avoid acting impulsively or irresponsibly. For example, imagine that someone has a desire to become more physically fit. Using their faculty of will, they can decide to join a gym and create a workout plan. They can then take action by following through on their plan and making regular visits to the gym. By using their faculty of will wisely, they can achieve their goals and live a healthier life. The wise use of the three faculties of the mind is the key to living a good life. By using one's faculty of judgment to develop rational beliefs, one's faculty of desire to seek rational desires, and one's faculty of will to make responsible decisions and take action, individuals can achieve their goals and live a fulfilling life. Chapter 6. Apply the dichotomy of control. The dichotomy of control may sound like a complicated concept, but it's actually a simple technique that can have a powerful impact on one's life. At its core, it's a philosophy that encourages people to focus only on those things they can control and to let go of everything else. This might seem counterintuitive at first, but it's a mindset that can help them navigate life's ups and downs with greater ease and resilience. Of course, like any skill, putting the dichotomy of control into practice takes practice. But with time and effort, it can become second nature. Whether one's facing a difficult work situation, a challenging relationship, or just the everyday stresses of life, embracing the dichotomy of control can help them maintain a sense of inner calm and clarity. The step 1 involves developing a constant focus on the present moment. Crucial aspect of the Stoic practice of the dichotomy of control is cultivating a constant focus on the present moment. This means training one's mind to be fully engaged with what is happening right now, rather than being distracted by worries or regrets about the past, or anxieties or expectations about the future. One way to develop this sort of focus is through mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness is the practice of paying attention to the present moment with an attitude of curiosity, openness, and non-judgment. By regularly practicing mindfulness, people can train their minds to become more aware of their thoughts, emotions, and sensations, and to stay grounded in the present moment. Here's an example of how to apply mindfulness in everyday life. Using the example of a morning routine, waking up in the morning, individuals are advised to take a few deep breaths and bring attention to their body and their surroundings. As they get out of bed, they notice the sensation of their feet touching the floor, the temperature of the room, and the sounds around them. As they brush their teeth, they need to pay attention to the sensation of the bristles against their teeth and gums, the taste of the toothpaste, and the movements of their hands and arms. As they take a shower, they feel the water on their skin, the smell of the soap or shampoo, and notice any thoughts or feelings that arise. Throughout the morning routine, they try to stay present and engaged with each moment, rather than letting one's mind wander or getting lost in thoughts or worries about the day ahead. By cultivating this sort of present moment awareness, people can begin to develop a deeper sense of inner peace and calm, and become better equipped to navigate the ups and downs of daily life. One other example of a mindfulness technique to stay in the present moment is body scan meditation. In this technique, a person lies down or sits comfortably and focuses their attention on each part of their body, starting from their toes and moving up toward their head. As they focus on each body part, they become aware of any sensations or feelings they may be experiencing in that area, without judgment or analysis. This helps them become more present in the moment, and to cultivate a sense of relaxation and awareness in their body. Here's how to incorporate this into one's routine. Find a quiet and comfortable place where you can lie down or sit without distractions. You can use a yoga mat, a cushion, or a chair for support. Close your eyes and take a few deep breaths, letting go of any tension in your body. Start by focusing your attention on your toes. Pay attention to any sensations you may be feeling in your toes, such as warmth, tingling, or tension. Don't judge or analyze the sensations. Simply observe them. Slowly move your attention to the rest of your feet, noticing any sensations or feelings. Continue to move your attention up your legs, to your thighs, hips, lower back, abdomen, chest, arms, hands, neck, and finally your head. Spend a few moments on each body part, being aware of any sensations or feelings that arise. If you notice any tension or discomfort, to simply acknowledge it and let it go, without trying to change or fix it. If your mind starts to wander, gently bring your attention back to the present moment and continue with the body scan. When you reach the top of your head, take a few deep breaths and allow yourself to rest in this state of relaxation and awareness. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes and take a few more deep breaths before getting up. People can do a body scan meditation for as little as 5 minutes or as long as 30 minutes, depending on their schedule and preferences. It can be a helpful way to reduce stress, improve sleep quality, and cultivate mindfulness in their daily life. The step 2 of practicing the dichotomy of control is to develop the habit of constantly asking oneself whether a given situation or circumstance is under their control. This involves being mindful of one's thoughts and reactions and questioning whether they have any power to change the situation at hand. For example, imagine a person is driving to work and gets stuck in traffic. They may feel frustrated and anxious about being late, but by applying the dichotomy of control, they would ask themselves, is the traffic under my control? The answer is no, as they cannot control the flow of traffic. Therefore, they would remind themselves that the traffic is none of their concern, and that they should focus on what they can control, such as their reactions to the situation or how they use the time stuck in traffic, like listening to an audiobook or calling a friend. Another example could be a student who receives a poor grade on an assignment. Instead of becoming upset and dwelling on the outcome, they can apply the dichotomy of control by asking themselves whether the grade is under their full control. The answer is no, as the grade has already been assigned and cannot be changed. Therefore, the student can choose to focus on what they can control, such as studying harder for the next assignment or seeking feedback from their teacher on how to improve. Here's another example of how an individual can apply the habit of constantly asking oneself whether a given situation or circumstance is under their control. Tim is a manager at a software company, and he's working on a project that has been delayed due to technical difficulties. John is feeling frustrated and stressed about the situation because the delay is putting the project timeline at risk. To apply the habit, Tim could pause and ask himself, what aspects of this situation are under my control? He might identify that he can communicate the delay to his team and stakeholders, prioritize critical tasks, and explore alternative solutions. Next, he could ask himself, what aspects of this situation are not under my control? He might recognize that he can't control the technical issues causing the delay, or the fact that the project timeline is at risk. By taking this step-by-step approach, Tim can better understand what actions he can take to address the situation and what actions he needs to let go of. He can then focus his energy on the things he can control, which can help him feel more empowered and productive. In this way, the habit of constantly asking oneself whether a given situation or circumstance is under their control can be a practical and actionable tool for managing stress and improving one's ability to navigate challenging situations. Step 3 of practicing and applying the dichotomy of control seeks to answer the age-old question, is this under my control? If one's answer to this is partially, Epictetus advises individuals to make the best of the situation and leave the rest to providence. This means that individuals should take responsibility for what they can control and influence to the best of their abilities, but also understand and accept that some aspects of a situation are beyond their control. For example, imagine an individual is preparing for a job interview. They can control their preparation, attire, and attitude going into the interview. However, they cannot control the preferences and biases of the interviewer or the outcome of the interview. By recognizing this, the individual can focus on doing their best during the interview while also accepting that the ultimate decision is not in their hands. In this way, the practice of leaving partial control to providence can help people avoid unnecessary stress and anxiety over situations they cannot control. By focusing on what they can control and accepting what they cannot, individuals can approach life with a sense of peace and equanimity, even in the face of challenges and adversity. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes things just don't go according to plan. When faced with circumstances that might seem out of one's control, it's important to remember that not everything is entirely within one's grasp. However, that doesn't mean people should simply sit back and watch as life happens. Rather, they should strive to make the most of every situation, even if they can only control part of it. For instance, imagine an individual is planning an outdoor picnic with friends, but the weather doesn't look all that promising. While they may not be able to control the weather, they can still bring some fun activities that don't require perfect weather, like board games or card games. Ultimately, by making the best out of what's partially under their control, they leave the rest up to fate. Epictetus said we should possibly talk if basic and not about normal spot stuff. Most importantly, don't snitch about people, adulating, accusing, or looking at them. It couldn't be any more obvious. Enjoying snitch and making a decision about people who care for no situation present is generally not a fair activity. Moreover, don't yak about yourself. Everybody talks fundamentally about themselves, so you may better tune in and be of help instead of discussing your night out. Ask yourself, okay, prefer to hear people continuing forever about themselves? No, with the exception of maybe if it's a humorist. Action. Observe yourself just as others in discussions. Do you see how everybody's attempting to associate what's being said with themselves? Try not to go on and on. Endeavor to tune in and bolster others. Cause them to feel better. Test your impressions. How frequently have you reacted naturally to some circumstance just out of your initial presentation? Basically, consider how regularly people get irritated at various drivers when driving. People swear, show fingers, and get outstandingly irritated at various drivers, just out of feeling. We have the feeling that the other driver is a no-brainer and bomb-picked. Be that as it may, we don't have the foggiest idea. Conceivably it was our privilege to drive, yet maybe his child is biting the dust on the front seat. Perhaps his vehicle will get snatched rather than our own. Potentially he did just not give full thought. Besides, maybe you have accomplished something similar previously. More frequently than nothing out and out horrible has happened. So peaceful down, take a full breath and restrict the drive to react right away. We would favor not to react rashly to impressions. So ask yourself, I'm getting perturbed. Does this look good? What decisively happened? Epictetus narrates, we should ask whether it is up to us or not, and if not, by then we should state, by then, it's none of my anxiety. There's no explanation in responding sincerely to something we can't deal with. It isn't heavily influenced by us, just our reaction is. So pick the perfect reaction and continue forward. In various cases, the best reaction is no reaction. Action. Test your initial presentations. In the event that they are unhelpful, by then take a progressively intelligent reaction. Potentially, you don't need to react using any and all means. As a rule, we react to trifles. This isn't fundamental, and we can expel it. How might I use virtue here and now? Here's outstanding amongst other Stoic compositions I have encountered up to this point. By Epictetus, for each challenge, review the advantages you have inside you to adjust to it. Impelled by observing an alluring man or wonderful woman, you'll find inside you the opposite force of persistence. It looked with torment. You'll find the force of tirelessness. In the event that you are offended, you will find tolerance. In time, you will create to be sure that there is positively not a solitary impression that you won't have the moral method to endure. Magnificent. You can use any circumstance, each challenge, as a way to deal with training greatness and improve as an individual. You just need to apply greatness and reason consistently. The thought is so basic. With everything that happens, you can rehearse honesty. That is the least you can do. That is a safe technique to recognize everything that happens generously in light of the fact that you can take at any rate something extraordinary from it. Correctly, the demonstration of balance. You can go well beyond tolerating everything that happens by cherishing everything that happens. That is called lafati. Everything happens explicitly for you. Furthermore, you find the opportunity to evaluate action when you face a clumsy circumstance. Ask yourself, what is my best reaction here? By what technique would I be able to apply reason and honorableness right now? Is this the condition that I so dreaded? This is a movement from Seneca. That is the genuine stunt. You set aside a specific number of days when you go with basically nothing and decrepit sustenance, dress in ratty pieces of clothing, and ask yourself whether that is the thing that you so feared. Then again experience a late evening dozing on the floor, quick, for 24 hours, scour, rethink, little things, an agreeable bed, enough sustenance, bubbling water. On the off chance that you surrender those things just for 2 or 3 days, you will value them altogether later. You will welcome them. The thought is triple. We should value our life more and don't think little of everything. We should not fear losing everything. It will regardless be good. We can live with less. It isn't so terrible. We should try to balance it. Guarantee less, be increasingly freed. Action. Deprive yourself of something quickly, and from that point onward, appreciate the condemnation out of it when you do it once more. Try not to be happy with learning. Practice at rehearsing these exercises. Try not to be fulfilled now since you skimmed over the exercises. You should pick in any event one exercise and start right away. As Epictetus asked, well, on the off chance that you didn't get acquainted with these things in the solicitation to show them eventually, what did you learn them for? It couldn't be any more obvious. I don't need to tell you again how to do these exercises. You just need to start. What is the most terrible that could occur? When you set out to achieve something, ask yourself what is the most horrible that could happen. That is exemplary for Stoicism, and it's one of its fundamental thoughts, to prepare for the poo to happen and still have the choice to take it with calm and pick the most splendid possible reaction. The various people have a sort of plan, and when something occurs that isn't as indicated by that course of action, they have a conventional, old, passionate giant out. By and by, this isn't valuable and can be checked. Just prepare for terrible stuff to happen. The image that your vehicle will break down on your way to the noteworthy, imminent representative get-together. Additionally, in the event that it happens, you'll have the alternative to take it much better. It will look at the present suck. However, you won't find peculiarity out. We needn't bother with the most observably awful to happen, yet we should be prepared on the off chance that it happens. On the off chance that you have envisioned an awkward circumstance before it happens, you'll have the alternative to take it much better and stay calmer, and right now the choice to make its best. You'll possibly get crushed on the off chance that you have not seen that coming. Action. What do you intend to do in the next days? Picture what could turn out seriously and choose a snappy reaction. Imagine a scenario where, by then, I will have a good example in mind. The Stoics used the Stoic sage as a genuine model. The sage is a theoretical great. He is the ideal, extraordinary, and clever person. Directly, don't pressure. You will never be impeccable in that sense. Likewise, you shouldn't be. Regardless, it's been shown to be significant to have an individual in mind we have to interest or copy. It's not about the impersonation, since you are uncommon and should put forth an attempt not to resemble another person we can pick up from others. In distressing circumstances, ask yourself, what may the sage do? What may the ideal daddy do? What may LeBron James do? What may Batman do? If you have some genuine model in mind, fantastic. Envision that he is watching and watching you, and you should be as high as possible. This phenomenal model game isn't commonly about the genuine models, yet about carrying mindfulness into the circumstance. This is significant inside yourself. You appreciate what's the best activity. Action. Bring mindfulness into normal circumstances and ask what your genuine model would do. Or, on the other hand, ask what the ideal dad, mom, kin, partner, companion, darling, sportsman would do. Chapter 7. Love your fate. The Stoics endeavored to concentrate on what they can control. In addition, fate wasn't one of them. So they urged not to need for reality to be any unique, and rather recognize and value it for what it's worth. They regularly used the dog restricted to a moving truck. Purposeful anecdote. The adroit man resembles a pooch chained to a moving truck, running merrily close by and productively keeping pace with it. Though an imbecile resembles a canine that grumbly fights against the rope yet winds up pulled near by the truck at any rate, we can't change what comes to pass throughout everyday life. So the most intelligent thing is to recognize as opposed to fighting each barely noticeable detail that unfolds. We're similar to that pooch restricted to a truck, but just as free as the length of the chain. Accordingly, we preferably welcome the experience over getting pulled along. To hate what happens is to expect you have a choice in that issue wrongly. Action. When something comes to pass, ask yourself whether you can do what needs to be done or not. If not, if it's not under your yet under fate's influence, by then recognize it all things considered. There's no sense in battling with this present reality. It'll just make you miserable. Non-resistance. Don't need for reality to be not the same as it is. Non-judgmental. Don't condemn events, simply recognize them as they seem to be. Non-attachment, things go to and fro, don't get excessively appended to what you like. Agony and sickness, opportunities for virtue. Stoic teacher Epictetus was frail. He picked this was a snag to the leg, not to the mind. The comparable is legitimate for physical torment and contamination. The agony is to the body, not the mind. We can pick what we do with the torment. It is conceivable that we can take a cerebral torment courageously, or we can whimper and whine about it. The choice is up to us. This movement is about not being taken over by weakness and self-centeredness when we suffer torment. Such liberal reactions will just intensify the circumstance. Action. Next time you feel a kind of torment, endeavor to prepare your exemplary nature and keep it together. Remember, the agony is to the body, not the mind. Headache, it's an opportunity to prepare quality. Fever, give your body some rest. No motivation to gripe. Choose not to be affected by torment. Spare your quietness. Envision everything as acquired from fortune. All we truly guarantee is our mind. Everything else can be expelled at a snap. Your assets, your body, your family, your allies, everything could be evacuated in a second. As per the Stoics, we should value these things as long as we have them, yet not get too appended in light of the fact that they could be gone quickly. Consider everything procured, from nature, fortune, God, or whatever you need, and you can just use it by chance. It might be expelled at a snap, difficulties and gone, without prior observation, without inquiring. Seneca pondered, in what manner may we see such a lot of hardship occurring on the planet and not envision it occurring with us? It's deadness. Action. Remind yourself that all that you think to have isn't really yours, whether or not you paid for it. On the off chance that it will, in general, be expelled at a snap, it's not truly yours. Be mindful that all that you hold truly can be expelled without before observe. What's your favorite you have? Remember, it could be passed by tomorrow. Next time you kiss your loved ones goodbye, envision it's the last time. Remember your good fortune. The Stoics were minimalists. They needed to esteem what they had as opposed to aching for what they didn't have. They were appreciative of what they had throughout everyday life. They endeavored to require whatever they recently had as opposed to wanting things they didn't have. Essentially, 1. They endeavored to fight their craving to accumulate and swarm stuff. They, too, were appreciative of what they recently had without 3. Getting excessively connected to those things. Action. How much would you need the things you have on the off chance that you didn't have them? Like with various exercises, you can record things. For example, record 3 things you're thankful for. Don't buy the stuff you don't require. Appreciate the things you starting at now have. Don't get excessively appended to these things you're appreciative for. Excuse the wrongs of others. The Stoics accepted that everybody endeavors to do what he believes is right, whether or not it's obviously not. People don't mess up purposefully. They go about as they might suspect is right. Likewise, we should feel frustrated about as opposed to blaming them. In what manner may we loathe somebody when we understand he didn't have the foggiest idea about any better? Right, we should be tolerant and kind. We have to excuse the wrongs of others, as Jesus expressed, Father, pardon them for they don't fathom what they are doing. Action. Before you explode at somebody, uncover to yourself that she didn't have the foggiest idea about any better. However, you do, and accordingly, you can be thoughtful and pardoning. Don't search for retaliation when somebody wrongs you. Mean from deficiency, be tolerant and kind. Pity as opposed to blaming transgressors. They are blinded in their most necessary resource, their mind. If somebody is mean to you, by then endeavor to believe it to prepare. We're all learning and attempting to give indications of progress. Scratches happen, so shake it off and continue forward. It's happened distinctly in preparing. Purchase tranquility instead. This is an immaterial virtuoso. One of the primary goals of the Stoics was to have the choice to stay calm even regardless of setback. Whatever a Stoic faces, he needs to stay peaceful and sensible. Frequently, when something occurs I don't care for, and which mixes this inward ire and vitality, I let myself know I buy quietness and continue ahead calmly. In reality, even with a smile. This announcement alone justified all of the books I read on Stoicism. I significantly ask you to endeavor to fuse these words into your Stoic way of life. Trust me, it'll be supported. In spite of all the difficulty, the main admonition, it requires enough regard for step in the middle of the improvement and reaction. In the event that you deal with that, you'll quickly benefit altogether from these words. Action. Bring mindfulness into your life, and at whatever point something is stimulating shock and uneasiness inside you, let yourself know, I buy peacefulness. When you spill some wine over your articles of clothing, buy tranquility. When your roomie doesn't do the dishes, buy tranquility. When your favorite game's bunch yields a late equalizer, buy tranquility. It is far simpler to look at something fairly and to keep up the balance when little burdens, or even calamities, come to pass as opposed to ourselves. Be that as it may, why? What makes us imagine that we are the universe's phenomenal deer that is significantly huger than others? Wouldn't it be better if we could react similarly when something loads us? We are not extraordinary. What unfolded has happened to various people previously, and will happen to various later on. The universe doesn't treat us any uniquely in contrast to other people. It isn't after us. Things unfold in the average solicitation of things. Realizing this can give us comfort, action, and something awful. In any case, what happens? In the event that you are lamented about something, endeavor this movement. We frequently get an unnecessary issue in light of our creative minds. We mess up and overlook this isn't such a noteworthy thing that appeared differently in relation to for as far back as we can recollect. We revolve around something and think this is gigantically huge, yet it is never as critical as it shows up while we are contemplating it. That is when the point of view can be truly valuable. Take the view from above. Envision you're up in the sky and believe yourself to be a modest bit in a little house, in a little city, in a still little country appear differently in relation to the whole planet. Furthermore, the whole planet is small, stood out from the universe. Your issues can't be such a critical thing in the impressive subject of your life. From above, things seem, by all accounts, to be logically trifling, which urges you to see it with detachment. What's more, that everything is short-lived. Look at what issues single people are worried about. John has a headache and is particularly worried about this. On the contrary piece of the course of action, people are continued running over by a tsunami, and, in one more spot, people get into bomb blasts. That cerebral torment looks like a joke from above. Like most various issues we worry about, action. Imagine leaving your body and descending higher upwards the sky and looking down on yourself and the things around you. Go perpetually raised and look at your city, your country, your landmass, ultimately our planet, the audit that your body lives down there. Chapter 8. Helpful Stoic Exercises. Exercises that you can do to develop a Stoic perspective. While this is significant for the possible Stoic, I feel that everyone can benefit from these exercises. In the event that you don't ponder Stoicism, by then here would be a good beginning, or you can examine a few various papers I've made, and you should quickly understand the general thought. This isn't some extraordinary ballyhoo. Any person who acknowledges me realizes that I object to the whole thought of powerful nature. These exercises have been used by countless people since they work, taking everything into account, not in some non-existent faraway land. They are rational, and they don't require any equipment, with the exception of a working mind. These exercises have been around for an enormous number of years, and the clarification that they are up till now appropriate today is on the grounds that they are grounded in comparable way experience and in like way sense. Exercise alone, early morning reflection. It doesn't take a logical virtuoso to comprehend this one. You need to reflect. You need to erect speedily close to the start of the day. It's, in actuality, more nuanced than that. It's not just about masterminding what you will do that day, and it's about how you may respond to what you will do, and besides what others will do. Stick, like there's no tomorrow, to the going with standard, not to respect trouble, never to trust in progress, and consistently to take full note of fortune's penchant for continuing comparably any way she sees fit, her as if she were truly going to do all that it is in her impact to do. Whatever you have been expecting for a long time comes as to a lesser degree a shock. Seneca. At first be grateful that you have woken up. Various people won't have this advantage today. Additionally, plan how you will get a handle on your excellencies and avoid your obscenities. Pick a particular philosophical resolution, or an individual quality you have to create, and consider how you can go along with it into the day ahead. Soundly check how you will deal with any irksome conditions that may well develop. Thirdly, prompt yourself that the principal things you can control are your contemplations and your exercises. Everything else is wild, errand. In the event that you find a workable pace and have time, go out for a walk and welcome the rising sun while ruminating over making yourself as a person. Perform light exercises using your own one-of-a-kind body weight. Consider your own one-of-kind mortality, and the manner in which that you will age. Exercise 2. A view from above. This exercise is proposed to remind you about how little you for sure are, and how little noteworthiness most things are. So to speak, to give you a sentiment of the all-inclusive strategy. It's direct, and you use your innovative mind to endeavor to relate yourself to the whole world and pass. 2 different ways to move toward this. Follow a guided reflection. Do it without anyone else's help. This is my supported technique. As you don't require any equipment, it will in general be done wherever. I recommend taking off to somewhere extricating up. Unmistakably, I can tell you unequivocally what to imagine since I'm not you. Yet I would recommend starting over the fogs, and a while later, step by step, come closer to the world and the people in it. Try not to spare a moment to start a mess progressively removed away in some distant spot of the universe. Watch everything going on. First kisses, wars, exposures, learning, marvelous appearances, blocked driving conditions, and whatever else you can imagine. Watch, nonetheless, don't condemn. By and by view yourself as in association with most of this. Realize that an enormous number of the things you hold to be noteworthy are simply, commonly, significant. Understand that you're just modestly considerable. Extra assignments. Take a stab at setting time as you do this exercise. Imagine yourself walking around urban networks, and everything is amazingly still. See that precise moment. 2. Endeavor this exercise. Be that as it may, in a substitute period. This can truly hammer home the manner in which that you once didn't exist, and over the long haul. Exercise 3. Contemplation of the man or woman desire. This exercise is proposed to give an impulse to change towards transforming into an ideal individual. This is a perpetual strategy. Consider the attributes which make up the ideal person. For the prosperity of straightforwardness, we ought to expect that the Greek and Roman statues address the physical flawlessness and focus on the psychological edges. What qualities make up the ideal character? In specific respects, this is a genuine problematic request to answer, and perhaps it is easier to concentrate on what may an ideal individual do in some irregular condition. From the exercises of this ideal individual, We would then have the option to endeavor to choose their inside attributes and, preferably, begin to duplicate them. Review that the ideal individual doesn't exist. Extra assignments, aka an overview of real, genuine models, past or present, and research what makes them great. Find the best attributes of these individuals and discard any negative character deserts. You can moreover plan something opposite for looking at the ideal man. Inspect the most exceedingly awful kind of individual conceivable, and try to refrain from being that way. Exercise 4. Cultivating philanthropy. For a certain something, we ought to portray unselfishness, the craving to propel the welfare of others. Contrary to display day figuring, money isn't the ideal approach to transform into a philanthropic person. For sure, anyone can transform into a contributor, and it just requires the right outlook towards others. The issue is that as an issue, obviously, we will all in all life as if we were being encased in a movement of circles, one inside the other, many equivalents to a Russian doll. Each hover addresses a consistently higher great wave from our genuine selves. So how might we create good cause? Our goal should be to endeavor to bring everyone into a shut circle. So consider your family an increase of yourself and your related inhabitants as your family, right to looking at humankind as a whole as country individuals. The Stoic intellectual hierarchies even went the degree that cliché that we should consider art to be just as they were parts of our own body, like an arm or a leg. This requires a huge move in setting and a lot of effort. In any case, it has its central focuses. You end up not become too much associated with any single individual who leaves you less revealed. A greater companion organizes, which implies a more noteworthy introduction to different social orders and viewpoints. This is an incredibly open entryway for learning. Errands. Strike up an enchanting conversation with an untouchable. Let your dear sidekicks understand that you consider them an element of your family, and that they should have the alternative to rely upon all of you things considered. Exercise 5. Self-retreat. While there are various legitimate supports to dare to the most distant corners of the planet, doing thusly to find concordance or opportunity isn't one of them. It's very unphilosophical. Huge quietness and opportunity are things that began from inside. So in the event that you are escaping from the scholarly dissension, you are escaping from yourself. Disastrously when you make an outing, you have to bring yourself along for the journey. Allow me to offer you a less perplexing and besides much more affordable approach to find critical quietness and opportunity with this exercise. Routinely travel inside your mind, particularly in case you need critical tolerance or opportunity. No spot else is anyone as apparently. You can be variously suitable here. At present, all that is expected of you is 5 to 10 minutes consistently to finish off the world and to take into consideration your own one-of-a-kind mind. People search for withdrawals for themselves in the farmland by the seashore, in the inclines, and you likewise have made it your affinity to hurt without little paying mind to whatever else. Regardless, this is all around unphilosophical, when it is possible for you to withdraw into yourself at whatever point you please. For no spot would one have the option to withdraw into more prominent agreement or opportunity from thought than inside one's own soul, especially when an individual incorporates such things inside him that he simply needs to see them recover from that moment perfect effortlessness of cerebrum. And by straightforwardness of mind I add up to nothing other than having one's mind in extraordinary solicitation. So consistently grant yourself this retreat, consequently energize yourself, yet keep inside you compact and fundamental resolutions that will be adequate, from the beginning experience, to scour you from all agony. Starting late saw a video about a prisoner who understood that he would spend a mind-blowing rest in disengagement. He discussed how he could, regardless, escape from the 4 dividers of his cell by examining and thinking. This makes you wonder what being a prisoner suggests, and if there are a couple of ways we are by and large prisoners in different sorts of correctional facilities. The person who is truly permitted to do what he appreciates may be sanely caught in wretchedness or progressively horrible. 2 or 3 things you may need to think about when on a self-retreat. You are not aggravated by events yet by your evaluation of events. Everything is continually giving indications of progress, and there is no way around it. You won't live until the finish of time. Undertaking. Attempt and practice self-retreat in non-immaculate conditions. You could try doing it in a comparable room as someone sitting before the TV, or perhaps on a journey in an open vehicle. Visit ComCom to empower you to loosen up before starting in case you are encountering issues when you first give this a shot. Exercise 6. The Philosophical Journal. The qualification here is that rather than clarifying just on what has happened in your life before, you analyze it from a stoical perspective. You can use a philosophical journal as an instrument to locate your own one-of-a-kind lacks and to follow the manner in which you change after some time. By steady reflection, we can improve our present and future life by organizing your future exercises according to an ethical framework, and after that later, you can recollect and see what prerequisites to change reliant on what happened. This Stoic exercise is definitely not hard to unite with a commentary, and on the off chance that you do it right, unavoidably there should be no qualification between a conventional journal area and a philosophical one. Assignments. 1. Keep a regular philosophical journal for 1 month. 2. Peruse the philosophical journal called Examinations of the Roman head and realist Marcus Aurelius. Exercise 7. The stripping method. The derivation behind this exercise is that every situation has various layers, many equivalents to an onion. Each layer addresses something that we bring to the situation and not just the condition. It's simply by considering the inside issues without the decently immaterial layers we incorporate that we can go about according to a good, authentic structure. Stop considering your reputation or whatever individual piece of the room you figure you may get as a significant part of the condition when working out what to do in a given situation. Ask yourself the going with requests. What worth does this situation bring to everyone? You might be amazed at how regularly the fitting reaction is none. What kind of attributes does this situation require? If you have these qualities, by then extraordinary. In case not, by then consider this condition a good chance to make them. At the point when we're growing up, an impressive parcel of us fight to pick what we have to do in our lives. In case we strip this request down significantly, it's connected to finding something fulfilling and essential to advance toward. From the outset, it justifies neglecting the issue of adjustment or others longing for what you should do, else you may end up continuing with an actual existence which is far ousted from who you truly are. Really struggled with this growing up. I had an astounding start in life to the extent of guidance at a top school. I had lived in various spots, and I had a strong melodic youth. I got every open door available, yet I was in such frenzy about what I would do in my life that I quit school before I finished and never any time set off for college. While I wouldn't recommend along these lines to everyone, it at last turned out very well for me. Assignment. Ask yourself the going with the request. What may I do if money was not an issue? Answer the over the request, and, from that point forward, continue to do just that. Exercise 8. Bedtime reflection. This is the opposite side of exercise number 1. Early morning reflection. This time, instead of contemplating what will happen, you consider what has happened. Normally replay your entire day and a short time later asks yourself the going with requests. Did I carry on as shown by all accounts? Did I relate with people with whom I teamed up inside a very much arranged and attentive way? What obscenities have I combated? Have I made myself an unrivaled individual by building up my standards? There's nothing ending you preparing for the next day. Try not to stop for a second to record 2 or 3 notes on interesting points around the start of the day. This all associations up with the next day's early morning reflection. Figuratively speaking, learn from your slip-ups, undertakings. Record one thing you have to improve the next day, paying little heed to pretty much nothing. You will be amazed at how you change in case you keep this up for an impressive time span. The idea that this day has finished, and there is nothing you would now have the option to do to change it. Recognize everything that has happened, whether or not positive or negative. Exercise 9. Negative visualization. I've oftentimes seen how the wonder of hedonic adaptation suggests that we constantly become accustomed to the things we have, and a short time later begins to disparage them. The negative recognition is a fundamental exercise that can remind us how blessed we are. The explanation is clear. Imagine that dreadful things have happened, or that helpful things have not. You pick the size of the disaster, losing all of your advantages, never having met your life accomplice, losing a family member, losing a sense, for instance, your sight or your hearing. You can, in like manner, imagine how conditions that you are going to forget about it will turn severely. While you may envision that this kind of pessimism isn't helpful for a happy and fulfilling life, it can change your life into unadulterated gold by making you comprehend that all these awful things have not happened. Extra assignments. Attempt and imagine fiascos happening in the very showing that you will do. I don't endorse this to everyone, as it isn't for the fearful. Envision having been considered eventually beforehand, and all of the things that you would miss since they would not have been structured now. Exercise at 10. Physical self-control training. This exercise includes in purposefully experiencing physical hardships, and besides forsaking things, one increases in value. To a great extent, one could consider this a practical type of negative recognition. Physical self-control training fills a twofold need: to set ourselves up in the event that we have to go up against physical hardships, or we lose a couple, or all of what we have, to prepare ourselves not to need things that are outside of our control. Remember that we can control our thoughts and our exercises. Remember that you ought to understand everything in life uninhibitedly. Many equivalents to sand. You don't hold sand immovably, and else it escapes from your grasp. Stoic meditation exercises. Here are the 4 Stoic meditation methods it incorporates. Stoic meditation exercises. Here are the 4 Stoic meditation techniques it incorporates. Examination of the sage. Envision the instance of the ideal Stoic smart man or woman, and how they would adjust to various challenges throughout everyday life. Endeavor to express their frames of mind, which you can recollect as short platitudes or precepts. Moreover, think about models, for instance Socrates, Zeno, Epictetus, or Marcus Aurelius, or other explicit, genuine models from history, fiction, or your own life. Examination of death. Intermittently think about your own mortality, seeing it impartially, and as both common and unavoidable. Each morning remind yourself that the day ahead could be your last. Each night envision seeing the day behind you as though it were your last. Endeavor to live grounded in the present moment, by valuing the endowment of life as though you're a guest at a festival or supper, which you know will keep going for a limited time frame. Thought of the whole. Envision the whole world as though observed from high above, similar to the awesome creatures looking down from Mount Olympus. On the other hand, endeavor to envision the whole of the real world and your place inside things. Consider likewise the short existence of each and every material thing, and the short period of time that human life keeps going. Premeditation of adversity. Work on envisioning diverse calamities that could happen upon you, as though they're going on now, while keeping up stoic objectivity and aloofness toward them, concentrating on the differentiation between what is up to you and what isn't, and permitting satisfactory time for your underlying emotions to subside normally. Think about how, as a Stoic sage would react to comparable events. Attempting Stoic meditations. Picture your place in the world. The Hierocles Circle is a Stoic visualization practice that causes you to consider how you fit into the terrific arrangement of things. Start by picturing yourself. By then envision your family and partners around you. Picture your associates, neighbors, and partners in the accompanying circle, your city in the accompanying, and, definitely, the entirety of mankind, the entirety of nature, and the entirety of the nearness. Take around 10 minutes to do the action. In the event that it energizes you, focus. Sit in a quiet spot. Close your eyes and take moderate, full breaths. The point is to welcome that things are interconnected. You're a bit of an interpersonal organization and, at last, connected to the entire universe. Take a stab at envisioning extraordinary adversity. Premeditation malorum is a Stoic meditation wherein you envision losing something that is fundamental to you, similar to your movement or a companion or relative. Picture a negative circumstance in your mind just for 2 or 3 minutes or something like that. It sounds upsetting, yet the fact of the matter is to recognize temporariness, plan for blocks, consider the helpful things throughout your life, and defeat your sentiments of fear. Negative visualization can help fabricate mental quality in spite of uncontrollable deterrent. That infers when something horrendous happens, you may have a simpler time adapting in the event that you've quite recently envisioned it. Peruse a step-by-step quote and think about its importance. Consistently investigate a short quote by a Stoic researcher. We should accept it on various events to yourself and think about its importance, whether or not it was made more than 2,000 years back. Consider how you could apply its significance to your own one-of-a-kind life. You could look online for proclamations by scholars like Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius. You can likewise discover explanations, reflections, and various resources on astute online diaries. Compose an intelligent journal section at the piece of the deal. At the piece of the deal, elucidate the troubles you went up against and the choices you made. Mull over a negative standard of conduct you attempted to improve. Consider how you could have chosen a prevalent choice or dealt with a circumstance in an unexpected way. For occurrence, you may communicate, "Today Sam was short with me. I started to state something back, however got myself before I lost my cool. I'm showing signs of improvement about not permitting others to get under my skin, yet, at the same time, have some work to do. Conclusion. No writings by Epictetus are known. His discourses were transcribed and compiled by his pupil, Arian I. The main work is the Discourses, 4 books of which have been preserved. Arian also compiled a popular digest, entitled the Enchiridion, or Handbook. In a preface to the Discourses that is addressed to Lucius Gellius, Arian states that whatever I heard him say I used to write down, word for word as best I could, endeavoring to preserve it as a memorial, for my own future use, of his way of thinking and the frankness of his speech. In the 6th century, the Neoplatonist philosopher Simplicius wrote an extant commentary on the Enchiridion. Epictetus maintains that the foundation of all philosophy is self-knowledge. That is, the conviction of our ignorance and gullibility ought to be the first subject of our study. Logic provides valid reasoning and certainty in judgment, but it is subordinate to practical needs. The first and most necessary part of philosophy concerns the application of doctrine, for example, that people should not lie. The second concerns reasons, e.g., why people should not lie, while the third lastly examines and establishes the reasons. This is the logical part, which finds reasons, shows what is a reason, and that a given reason is a correct one. This last part is necessary, but only on account of the second, which again is rendered necessary by the first. Prohersis. Both the Discourses and the Enchiridion begin by distinguishing between those things in our power and those things not in our power. That alone is in our power, which is our own work, and in this class are our opinions, impulses, desires, and aversions. On the contrary, what is not in our power are our bodies, possessions, glory, and power. Any delusion on this point leads to the greatest errors, misfortunes, and troubles, and to the slavery of the soul. We have no power over external things, and the good that ought to be the object of our earnest pursuit is to be found only within ourselves. The determination between what is good and what is not good is made by the capacity for choice. Prohersis allows us to act, and gives us the kind of freedom that only rational animals have. It is determined by our reason, which, of all our faculties, sees and tests itself and everything else. It is the correct use of the impressions that bombard the mind that is in our power. Practice then from the start to say to every harsh impression, "You are an impression, and not at all the thing you appear to be." Then examine it and test it by these rules you have, and firstly and chiefly by this, whether the impression has to do with the things that are up to us, or those that are not. And if it has to do with the things that are not up to us, be ready to reply, "It is nothing to me." We will not be troubled at any loss, but will say to ourselves on such an occasion, I have lost nothing that belongs to me. It was not something of mine that was torn from me, but something that was not in my power has left me. Nothing beyond the use of our opinion is properly ours. Every possession rests on opinion. What is to cry and to weep? An opinion. What is misfortune, or a quarrel, or a complaint? All these things are opinions. Opinions founded on the delusion that what is not subject to our own choice can be either good or evil, which it cannot. By rejecting these opinions, and seeking good and evil in the power of choice alone, we may confidently achieve peace of mind in every condition of life. Good and evil. Epictetus says that reason alone is good, the irrational is evil, and the irrational is intolerable to the rationale. The good person should labor chiefly on their own reason. To perfect this is in our power. To repel evil opinions by the good is the noble contest in which humans should engage. It is not an easy task, but it promises true freedom, peace of mind, and a divine command over the emotions. We should especially be on our guard against the opinion of pleasure because of its apparent sweetness and charms. The first object of philosophy, therefore, is to purify the mind. The preconceptions of good and evil are common to all. Good alone is profitable and to be desired, and evil is hurtful and to be avoided. Different opinions arise only from the application of these preconceptions to particular cases, and it is then that the darkness of ignorance, which blindly maintains the correctness of its own opinion, must be dispelled. People entertain different and conflicting opinions of good, and in their judgment of a particular good, people frequently contradict themselves. Philosophy should provide a standard for good and evil. This process is greatly facilitated because the mind and the works of the mind are alone in our power, whereas all external things that aid life are beyond our control. The essence of divinity is goodness. We have all good that could be given to us. The deities too gave us the soul and reason, which is not measured by breadth or depth, but by knowledge and sentiments, and by which we attain to greatness, and may equal even with the deities. We should therefore cultivate the mind with special care. If we wish for nothing but what God wills, we shall be truly free, and all will come to pass with us according to our desire, and we shall be as little subject to restraint as Zeus himself. Every individual is connected with the rest of the world, and the universe is fashioned for universal harmony. Wise people, therefore, will pursue not merely their own will, but also will be subject to the rightful order of the world. We should conduct ourselves through life fulfilling all our duties as children, siblings, parents, and citizens. For our country or friends, we ought to be ready to undergo or perform the greatest difficulties. The good person, if able to foresee the future, would peacefully and contentedly help to bring about their own sickness, maiming, and even death, knowing that this is the correct order of the universe. We have all a certain part to play in the world, and we have done enough when we have performed what our nature allows. In the exercise of our powers, we may become aware of the destiny we are intended to fulfill. We are like travelers at an inn or guests at a stranger's table. Whatever is offered we take with thankfulness, and sometimes, when the turn comes, we may refuse. In the former case, we are a worthy guest of the deities, and in the latter we appear as a sharer in their power. Anyone who finds life intolerable is free to quit it, but we should not abandon our appointed role without sufficient reason. The Stoic sage will never find life intolerable and will complain of no one, neither deity nor human. Those who go wrong we should pardon and treat with compassion, since it is from ignorance that they err, being as it were blind. It is only our opinions and principles that can render us unhappy, and it is only the ignorant person who finds fault with another. Every desire degrades us, and renders us slaves of what we desire. We ought not to forget the transitory character of all external advantages, even in the midst of our enjoyment of them, but always to bear in mind that they are not our own, and that therefore, they do not properly belong to us. Thus prepared, we shall never be carried away by opinions. The final entry of the Enchiridion, or handbook, begins, upon all occasions, we ought to have these maxims ready at hand. Conduct me, Zeus, and thou destiny, wherever thy decree has fixed my lot. I follow willingly, and, did I not, wicked and wretched, would I follow still. Who yields properly to fate, is deemed wise among men, and knows the laws of heaven. Crito, if it thus pleases the gods, thus let it be. Anytus and Miletus may indeed kill me, but they cannot harm me.